Measuring soil carbon is one indicator of how healthy a soil is, and having more carbon is a good thing. Picture the difference between a dark, rich garden soil and a dusty dirt road. A garden has more soil carbon, which is why it's better for growing plants. That's why I was interested in comparing the amount of soil carbon between two farming practices. Rotationally grazed pasture, which you can think of as rotating animals through fenced off areas of grass pasture, so the plants have time to regrow after being grazed. And row crops like corn and soybeans. Both of these practices are ways we can feed livestock, whether we let the animals eat the grass and the pasture themselves, or we harvest the crops to bring to animals in a feedlot. But they differ in a couple big ways. One difference is that pastures are a perennial system. Because their roots survive in the soil throughout the winter, the plants then start growing sooner in the spring, and typically later into the fall as well. Perennial plants also keep the soil intact since the ground is not being disturbed by planting. On the other hand, since corn and soybeans are annual crops, fields spend more time without anything growing between harvest and planting. In addition, planting corn and soybeans can disturb the soil, which is one way soil carbon is lost. The plants and roots growing in the ground are a key source of soil carbon. So we would expect that these contrasting farming practices would lead to different amounts of carbon present in the soil. Now, I explored how these farming practices impact soil carbon because more carbon benefits both farmers and the public. Soil carbon helps farmers adapt to droughts and floods, and it makes their fields productive. Those of us who aren't farmers also benefit from cleaner water and when food production is more resilient in the face of too much or too little rain. So to compare these practices, I partnered with Wisconsin farmers to collect soil samples from 33 pasture and row crop field comparisons. Each pasture and row crop field pair were nearby to one another and on a similar soil so that they were a good match. Then I determined the difference in the soil carbon between each pair. In order to do that, I pulled soil samples down to 1 foot deep and then separated the top 6 inches of soil from the bottom 6 inches. That way I could compare how the soil carbon differed at the two different depths. I also had the chance to interview all of the farmers who rotationally graze their pastures to learn how they manage their land. One key finding was that on average, I calculated 5.5 tons more soil carbon per acre in the pastures than the row crop fields within that top 6 inches of soil. This was a big difference and was observed despite all of the variation and how the farms were managed, since no two farmers are doing exactly the same thing. I also found that pastures had more soil carbon the older they were, which could be an indicator that pastures are building up that beneficial soil carbon over time. At the very least, pastures are certainly doing better than row crops when it comes to building healthy soil. And yes, healthy soil is important, but it's not the only thing that matters. Being able to make a living and enjoying the work you are doing are important too. I loved getting to chat with farmers about why they chose to use grazing, and here's a couple things I learned. Many shared that grazing was profitable for them, and others talked about the ways it brought them joy. One farmer shared with me, it just made farming fun again when talking about grazing. This means pastures are our best chance to help farmers adapt to extreme weather and build productive fields, and farmers seem to like it too. Also, if pastures store more carbon, they could be a strategy for offsetting carbon dioxide emissions. Given all these benefits, it sounds like pastures are a win for farmers, the public, and the environment.